Okay, so I'm ready to now start getting this prepped to do the additive and subtractive. I let it sit overnight. It's firm enough that I can go ahead and start softening these edges. So I'm going to take a water bottle and I'm just going to squirt a little water on my finger, and I'm just going to softly go across those edges because I don't want a sharp tile. So I'm just going to run it across there real quick. Soften up that edge. I've already smoothed out the surface. Kind of soften up those corners a little bit. And then just kind of blend that together, make it nice and smooth. And set that one aside. Just kind of bevel that edge just a little bit more so that it's nice and smooth. And then do this one. So in order to start carving on the tiles to do additive and subtractive, I just want to show you some of the tools that you can use. We have a few different carving tools. We've got the needle tool that you guys know about. The needle tool is just a sharp end. We don't want to really use that for carving. It's more for scraping the clay. You can write your name in it and stuff, poking holes. The tools that are really good for carving are these dental tools, and that's exactly what they are. They're actual dental tools for teeth, but we found that each of them have different kinds of ends that you can use. Some are sharper, some are flat. You've got the curved tips and things like that. We also have these V-tip tools with the wooden handles. This one has a more of a spear head end on it, where these are all curved, and some of them are a little sharper and some of them are a little bit thicker. Then we have rubber tip tools that you can use to press into. We've got the looped tools, one with a flat end and one with a round end, and then we have the wooden tools that you can also use to carve into the clay. So these are some of the tools that you can use for carving. Okay. So back to this, now that this is dried up just a little bit, we're ready to go ahead and start doing some of the additive and subtractive techniques. And so some of the things I like to do is for additive, or not for additive, for subtractive, I like to use these tools right here, so the V-tip tool and the wooden tool. And a lot of times, for the subtractive clay, I will take this tool and I can do things like pressing the end of the tool and repeating this little mark to give it kind of a pattern. So you can use the ends of tools to do things. Another one might be to go through, and you can see I can take the end of that tool and give it little V patterns, or a kind of a feathery or scaly texture on the outside of that. And so you can kind of see those as well. I can take the V-tip tool and clean that edge up. I can also go through and carve actual lines into the piece, and then just scrape that excess off right there, and I can go through and carve lines that I want to go in and do some carving stuff there. I can even take the end of that wood tip tool, or either of them, and I can press them in, kind of spin it. I can get different kinds of polka dots. You can do that with the end of your needle tool, so you can see I can go do that. I've seen some that will go through and use nuts and bolts and screws and things like that. You can take things like the gears, and you can press things into the clay. So I can press that gear in and use the needle tool to pull that out. So you can press things into it. These are all subtractive techniques of things that I can put into that surface of that tile. Now for the additive textures, we're going to be adding pieces of clay to the surface here. And so we would take things that we want to add. Now if I take a small piece of clay and I roll it into a ball and I want to add it right here to my piece of clay, if I put it on there, right now it's sticking. But if I bake it, or if I cook this in the kiln, this little ball here will fall off. So I want to make sure that it's not going to fall off. And so what I would do is we do a technique called slipping and scoring. We score the area first. So I would use a small scoring tool. I can use a combed edge, or I can use the needle tool, and I would pick the spot that I want to add it to. So if I'm going to add that right here, I'm going to score that and just kind of chew it up a little bit. And then I'm going to take some slip. Now this is where your slip containers come from, or come into play. We have our clay here, our slip that has been really wetted down so it's nice and sticky. And I'm going to take a little piece of that on my finger, and I'm just going to add that to where I scored my clay. So I'm going to set that aside. And then I'm going to take the little ball that I wanted to add it to, and I'm going to also score that ball. So I'm going to take my needle tool and just kind of score the spot that I want to add it to, put a little bit of slip on that, and then I'm going to press that into the spot that I want to add. Now when that's cooked in the kiln, that will not fall off. And I can do that with anything. If I created a little leaf shape and I went through and I carved some of the designs into that with some subtractive textures, put some little veins into that cute little leaf there. So I've got this leaf and I want to add that leaf to this here. Again, I can't just set it on there. I've got to go through and score that surface. So I'm going to use the scoring tool right here. I'm going to score the surface of that leaf, the back side. I'm going to score where I want to add it. So I'm going to score this smooth surface here. Put a little bit of slip on the back of the leaf and a little bit on the surface there. Scrape off that excess. And then I'm going to place that strategically. I can curl it up a little bit, add that there, and then that will not fall off. It doesn't all have to be subtractive and additive. I can mix these up if I'd like to make them look so that I have a little bit of both.